Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Gregory Foster never imagined that the phrase, "he's just a college classmate," would become the spark that led to the worst discovery of his life. Married to Vanessa for 12 years, he'd always been the kind of man who trusted his wife completely. He worked hard as a civil engineer, provided for his family with dignity, actively took part in raising their 9-year-old daughter, and made a point of supporting every dream Vanessa ever had. When she decided to go back to school and resume the business administration degree she'd put on hold years earlier to care for the family, Gregory thought it was great. He saw it as a chance for her to fulfill herself, to pursue something she'd always wanted. To him, supporting his wife was part of the commitment he'd made at the altar. He never imagined that this support would be used as a shield for betrayal. At first, everything seemed normal. Vanessa came home excited from class, talking about professors, assignments, and how hectic it was juggling school and home life. Gregory listened with genuine interest, happy to see her so engaged. But slowly, something began to change. Vanessa started mentioning a name more and more often, Julian. According to her, Julian was the classmate who helped the most with group projects, the one she connected with best academically. Gregory didn't pay much attention at first. After all, it made sense to have study partners. But mentions of Julian became constant. Julian said this, Julian suggested that, Julian has an interesting take on the project. It was as if Julian was present in every conversation, even when the topic had nothing to do with school. Beyond the constant mentions, other details started bothering Gregory. Vanessa began going out for study groups that lasted for hours. Sometimes she'd leave at 7 in the evening and not come back until after midnight. She'd say the group was large, they had a lot to review, and the library stayed open late. Gregory tried to understand, tried to be supportive. But something in her tone, the way she hurried out the door, and how she avoided giving specifics started to sound false. He also noticed she began putting more effort into her appearance on school days, different perfumes, more careful makeup, clothes he'd never seen before. When he commented on it, she'd laugh and say she was just trying to feel good about herself, that it had been years since she'd taken care of her looks. Gregory wanted to believe her. He really did. But what bothered him most was her phone. Vanessa, who used to leave it lying around anywhere, now kept it close at all times, face down, screen locked. And whenever a notification came through, she'd glance at it quickly, give a small smile, and put it away without showing anything. When Gregory asked who it was, she'd reply vaguely, "Oh, it's just the school group," or "it's a classmate asking about the assignment." He tried not to be intrusive, he didn't want to seem controlling. But suspicion began to grow, quietly and persistently, like a shadow stretching at dusk. One Tuesday night, Vanessa announced she needed to go to campus the next day for an important presentation. She said it was part of a crucial course and that the group had scheduled it for 7 p.m. Gregory thought it was odd, an evening presentation on a Wednesday? She explained the professor only had that time available, that it was an exception, and that it would be quick. He nodded, but something inside him screamed that it didn't make sense. He spent the whole night restless, tossing and turning, thinking about all the signs he'd been ignoring. The next day, when Vanessa left the house dressed up, perfumed, with a folder under her arm and a smile on her face, Gregory felt his chest tighten. As soon as she left, he stood in the living room, staring at the closed door. Their daughter was in her room doing homework. The house was quiet. And there he was, with a tightness in his chest he couldn't explain. It wasn't irrational jealousy or paranoia, it was instinct. That kind of feeling you can't justify with logic, but that screams inside you that something is deeply wrong. Gregory grabbed his car keys and decided to follow Vanessa. He didn't plan it, didn't think twice. He just went. He wanted to be wrong. He wanted to arrive at the campus and see her actually giving a presentation. He wanted all of it to be nothing more than the product of a tired, suspicious mind. But he lost her in traffic. Vanessa took a different route, made a few turns he couldn't keep up with, and before he realized it, she'd vanished. Gregory sat in the middle of the street, gripping the steering wheel tightly, muttering under his breath. He returned home frustrated, even more uneasy than before. He couldn't get it out of his head. He stayed awake all night waiting for Vanessa to come back. She arrived just before midnight, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She said the presentation went well, that the professor had praised them, and that she was tired. She kissed Gregory on the forehead and went to bed. He lay there next to her, feeling like he was sleeping beside a stranger. The next day, Gregory made a decision. He picked up the phone and called a friend who, months earlier, had mentioned using a private investigator for a business matter. He asked for the contact. His friend gave it to him without asking questions. Gregory called immediately. On the other end, a man with a firm, professional voice answered and introduced himself as Daniel. Gregory explained the situation, his wife going back to school, the constant mentions of a classmate, the strange hours, the change in her behavior. Daniel listened silently, and when Gregory finished, he said he understood completely. He explained that cases like this were more common than people thought, and that usually, when your gut screams, there's a reason. He asked if Gregory wanted to move forward. Gregory said yes. He wanted answers. He needed to know if he was going crazy or if something was truly wrong. Daniel explained the process. He'd need some information, the times Vanessa usually left the house, a description of her car, the school's address, any detail that could help. Gregory provided everything. Daniel said he'd start right away, but emphasized the need for patience. He explained that thorough investigations take time, patterns need to be observed, locations confirmed, and evidence solidified. He estimated that within a week, he'd have something concrete. Gregory agreed. 1 week. 7 days that felt like an eternity. During that week, Gregory lived a strange duality. On the outside, he kept up his routine, he went to work, picked up his daughter from school, ate dinner with the family, and talked to Vanessa as if nothing were wrong. But inside, he was falling apart. Every time Vanessa left for school, he felt a knot in his chest. Every time she mentioned Julian, he clenched his jaw. Every time she smiled at her phone, he wanted to snatch it from her hands and see what was really going on. But he held back. He waited. He trusted that Daniel would bring the answers he needed. Daniel worked meticulously. In the first few days, he discreetly followed Vanessa, noting the places she visited, the times, and her routes. He confirmed that on at least 3 occasions, she didn't go to campus at all. Instead, she drove to a residential neighborhood about 15 minutes from home and parked in front of an apartment building. Daniel took photos of the car, the building, and the license plate. He waited. Then he saw Vanessa get out of the car and be greeted at the door by a man, young, tall, dark-haired, with a wide smile. They hugged for a long time, intimately, not casually at all. They went inside together. Daniel recorded everything. He waited about 2 hours. When Vanessa came out, her hair was slightly messy, her blouse wrinkled, and her face showed clear satisfaction. The man walked her to the car, kissed her, not a friendly kiss, and waved as she drove off. Daniel repeated the surveillance on other days. The pattern held. Whenever Vanessa claimed to have evening school commitments, she went to the same apartment. She always met the same man. She always stayed about 2 hours. She always left with that same look on her face. Daniel managed to get clear photos, Vanessa entering the building, leaving, being hugged, being kissed. He also found the man's name. Through research and data cross-referencing, he identified him as Julian Martins, 28 years old, enrolled in the same college as Vanessa, in the same program and schedule. Everything fit. The classmate wasn't just a study partner. He was her lover. At the end of the week, Daniel called Gregory. He said he had what he needed. They arranged to meet discreetly at a downtown cafe. Gregory arrived on time, stomach churning. Daniel was seated at a corner table with a thick folder beside him. They exchanged brief greetings. Daniel got straight to the point. He opened the folder and began showing the photos, one by one. Vanessa entering the building. Vanessa being greeted by Julian. Vanessa leaving with messy hair. Julian kissing Vanessa. Each image felt like a stab. Gregory's chest tightened, his breathing grew heavy, his hands trembled. Daniel continued. He showed logs of dates and times, explaining that on at least 5 separate occasions, Vanessa had gone to Julian's apartment during the hours she claimed to be at school. He also showed social media screenshots confirming Julian was enrolled in the same course. Everything was documented. Everything was proven. Gregory sat in silence for a few minutes, just staring at the photos. He felt a mix of anger, sadness, betrayal, and relief, anger at the lies, sadness over the loss of something he believed was solid, betrayal from the broken trust, and relief that he wasn't crazy, that his instincts had been right. Daniel asked if he was okay. Gregory nodded, but it was a lie. He wasn't okay. He was shattered. But he was also determined. He thanked Daniel, paid for the service, took the folder with all the evidence, and left. He knew exactly what he needed to do. That night, Gregory waited for Vanessa to come home. She walked in with her usual calm expression and the same lies on her lips. She said class had been productive, that she was tired, and that she was going to take a shower. Gregory said they needed to talk. She looked at him, surprised and irritated, but sat at the table. Gregory placed the folder in front of her and opened it. He spread the photos out on the table, one by one, in silence. Vanessa turned pale. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She reached for the photos as if she could make them disappear, but Gregory firmly held her hand. "So this is how you study, Vanessa," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "With Julian? At his apartment? At 7 p.m.? Vanessa started stammering, trying to explain, saying it wasn't what it looked like. Gregory laughed, a bitter, joyless laugh. "It's not what it looks like? Are you telling me these photos are fake? That the detective I hired made it all up?" She was stunned. A detective. She hadn't expected that. She tried a different approach. She began to cry, saying she'd been confused, that Julian made her feel young again, that Gregory was always busy, that she'd felt neglected. She said it was a mistake, that she didn't know what she was doing, that she still loved him. He listened silently, arms crossed, looking at her like she was a stranger. When she finished, he took a deep breath and replied slowly, choosing each word carefully, "Do you know the difference between you and me, Vanessa? When I felt tired, when I felt alone, when I felt like something was missing, I didn't go looking for someone else. I tried talking to you. I tried to make things better. But you? You chose to lie. You chose to betray me. You used school, your dreams, as an excuse to destroy our family." Vanessa tried to interrupt, but he raised his hand. "I'm not done. You had choices. You could have talked to me. You could have asked for therapy. You could have ended things before betraying me. But no. You took the coward's way out. And now you'll pay for it." Vanessa tried to move closer, to hold his hand, to beg for another chance. She said she could change, that she could end things with Julian, that they could go to therapy, that they could rebuild their marriage. Gregory pulled his hand away and stood up from the chair. "There's no rebuilding, Vanessa. What you destroyed can't be fixed. And you know why? Because I'll never be able to look at you again without seeing these photos. I'll never be able to trust a single word that comes out of your mouth. You killed what we had. And now all that's left is to bury it." The next day, Gregory hired a lawyer. He brought all the evidence Daniel had provided. The lawyer reviewed everything and was blunt: Gregory had a strong case. The infidelity was proven, documented, undeniable. They immediately filed for divorce. Vanessa tried to fight back, hired her own lawyer, argued the evidence had been obtained illegally. But it didn't work. Everything had been done legally. Daniel was a licensed professional, the photos were taken in public spaces, and there had been no invasion of privacy. The case moved forward. Their 9-year-old daughter, Olivia, noticed something was wrong. She asked her dad why her mom seemed sad, why they didn't talk anymore. With a broken heart, Gregory explained simply, without going into heavy details, that sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love, and that he and her mom couldn't live together anymore. Olivia cried, but Gregory held her close and promised he'd always be there for her, that nothing would change how much he loved her. Over time, Olivia began to see things for herself. She noticed how her mom lied, avoided certain questions, and tried to manipulate the situation. And when it came time to decide who she wanted to live with, Olivia chose her father. In a private hearing, she told the judge she felt safer with Gregory, that she trusted him, and that she knew he'd never lie to her. Months later, the court ruling came down. Olivia's custody was awarded to Gregory. Vanessa would have visitation rights, but supervised at first, until she could demonstrate emotional stability. The division of assets was handled fairly, but Vanessa ended up with far less than she'd hoped. The judge took into account the proven infidelity and the emotional impact on the family. Vanessa tried to appeal, but it was pointless. She was alone, without her husband, with her daughter choosing to live with her father, and without the respect of family and friends who gradually learned the truth. And Julian? When he found out everything had been exposed, that Gregory had proof, that the case had gone to court, he simply disappeared. He blocked Vanessa on all social media, changed his phone number, and stopped attending classes. Vanessa tried to find him, even went to his apartment, but he'd already moved. He left her alone to face the consequences of a choice they'd both made, but that only she would pay for. She realized, far too late, that Julian never loved her. He'd just taken advantage of the opportunity. And when it became a problem, he ran like a coward. Vanessa tried to rebuild her life, but the shadow of betrayal followed her. At school, classmates who found out what had happened began avoiding her. Some openly judged her, others just kept their distance. She dropped out of the program again, unable to handle the stares and whispers. She tried reconnecting with Olivia, but her daughter kept her at arm's length, saying she needed time, that she was hurt, that she couldn't trust her. Vanessa found herself trapped in a loneliness of her own making, surrounded by fragments of a life she destroyed with her own hands. Gregory, on the other hand, focused on rebuilding. He poured himself into his work, his daughter, and their routine. The first few months were painful. There were nights he'd wake up in a cold sweat, reliving the photos, the lies, the betrayal. But over time, the pain gave way to something else: clarity. He realized he'd made the right choice. It wasn't worth holding on to someone who didn't want to be held. Dignity isn't something you negotiate, sell, or trade for comfort or fear of being alone. He learned to value himself again, to understand that he deserved someone who respected him, truly loved him, and didn't need escape valves to feel alive. Olivia began to bloom too. With time, she smiled again, played again, trusted again. Gregory made it a point to be present in every part of her life, dropping her off and picking her up from school, helping with homework, watching movies together on weekends. They built a new, healthy routine based on honesty and real love. Olivia realized that, despite everything, she was safe. And that made all the difference. About a year after the divorce, Gregory was at the grocery store with Olivia, picking out fruit, when he heard a familiar voice behind him. He turned and saw Vanessa. She looked thinner, with deep dark circles, dull hair, and a tired expression. She held a basket with just a few items. For a second, their eyes met. Vanessa opened her mouth as if to say something, but then closed it. Gregory simply gave a slight nod, took Olivia's hand, and walked away. There was no anger, no hatred, just indifference. And in a way, that was more final than any confrontation. Vanessa stood frozen, watching them walk away. She felt a pang in her chest, an urge to run after them, to shout, to beg for forgiveness once more. But she knew it wouldn't matter. She'd had every chance, and thrown them all away. Now all that remained was to live with the consequences of choosing a moment of pleasure over a lifetime of love, respect, and family. Gregory left the store with Olivia, loaded the groceries into the car, and smiled. It wasn't a smile of revenge or superiority, it was a smile of peace. Of someone who'd realized that sometimes losing someone means finally finding yourself again. He looked at his daughter, humming a song in the back seat, and felt gratitude for having had the courage to seek the truth, for refusing to settle for crumbs, for choosing dignity. And so, while Vanessa carried the weight of her choices, Gregory moved forward, stronger, more aware, more whole. Proving that the greatest victory after betrayal isn't revenge, but the ability to rise again, to value yourself, and to build a new life rooted in respect, truth, and self-love. Because in the end, the one who betrays doesn't just lose the person they loved, they lose themselves. And that's a loss no college classmate can ever make up for. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.